I happened to be watching something the other day. In fact, I heard it. It was on a YouTube link, and it was Jim Jordan and others describing what was happening specifically regarding the hearings that were to take place before the House and what needed to be done. And it was specifically involving the, how do I say this, the Biden laptop, the testimony with Emma Jo Morris, and with Bobby Kennedy. And they dealt specifically with the issues of how individuals who had reported certain things, complained about certain things, suggested certain things as to vaccine use, virus causation, gain of function, China, whatever. There were direct pieces of information, data from these people, or rather from the FBI to Twitter and vice versa. And I was listening to this and I was thinking to myself, what am I listening to? And it happened to be a repeat. I want you to listen carefully to what I'm saying. It's critical that you grasp this. It was yet again one of the most thorough explanations of the abuses that we have seen and it involves nothing being done. Let me say this again. One of the most thorough disquisitions, expositions, hearings ever. And nothing's been done. I don't think you heard this again. One of the most thorough, precise lists of abuses regarding the weaponization of information, and nothing was done. Nothing has been done. Nothing will be done. Do you understand what I'm saying? When I say that to you, what does that do to you? Let me tell you what it does. Nothing. And the reason why is not because you don't care, but you're just used to it. You're used to it because it happens. It means nothing. You don't react. You will, when I say you, the country will talk of it and Joe's got to go and he's terrible and he's old and he's awful and Trump's great and that's it. And what we are seeing right now, yet again, and this is something that either America gets or doesn't get. Either they understand it or they don't, because I don't think they do. Nothing is being done. Nothing is being done. It's like your mic's not connected. You think you're talking, nothing. There's no meter, nothing. It's going nowhere. Nobody has said anything about anything. There is no correction. There are no corrections. Let me say this to America again. And you can see such wonderful disquisitions and pieces and wonderful YouTube channels and podcasts and blogs about everything under the sun. Nothing is being done. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody to anything. Nothing. And nobody says anything about it. Nobody. You think Jim Jordan would be on Fox News or whatever he loves to be on to say, you know what? I'm feeling kind of weird. I had a very good hearing. We subpoenaed everybody. Oh, they can subpoena people. And you think Jim Jordan or Comer, well, Comer's still working theoretically, but you think Jim Jordan would say, you know what? I haven't been able to really do much of anything. Remember Rand Paul's absolute brilliantly these moves, these excoriations and repudiations of Dr. Fauci. Remember that? What's happened to Fauci? Nothing. He's gone. He's retired. He's finished. He's working in other places. Let me say this again to America. Nothing's being done. This is pretend. This, our government, is like student council in high school. Has no power whatsoever. It looks good. There's a yearbook picture. They meet, they talk, they do different things, but it means nothing. Nothing is being done. Let me say that again. Let me explain that again to you. Nothing's being done. And it's something which I wanted to call this. We are this shadow government has basically knocked you out. You're like one of these people in Kensington or San Francisco. You're on the street. The American public is just gassed with fentanyl or whatever. We have needles sticking out of our neck, and we should be the naloxone, the thing to wake people up, to interrupt the narcotic pattern of what it's done. That's what we should be doing. That's what we should be. But we're not. Go down the list. Pick anybody that you want. Any show. Pick your favorites. Anything. Joe Rogan, Corbett, anybody. Pick your, and there's some great ones. They just expose the problem. It's like going to a world in which all we have are lab results, but no doctors. You have this lab result that says, well, this is wrong with me. This is wrong. My sodium levels are down. My potassium levels are down. My HDL is nowhere to be found. LDL is through the roof. Bilirubin, PSA. Oh my God. I don't, there's no doctors. But you have but you can say, but look, this is what's wrong with me. Oh my God, my weight's wrong. My blood pressure's wrong. Everything's wrong. No doctors. No course of correction. What are you going to do to fix that? I don't know. None of the people on these things that we deal with will ever tell you, here's what needs to be done. There's never a cause of action. There's no cause of action, a course of action, a call to action. Never. It's just, here's the latest thing. And you hear these wonderful, I heard one of the most interesting, by the way, the most worthless group of individuals, absolutely worthless. Teats on a boar hog, as the old expression. I'm trying to clean it up. Philosophers. If you want to see a waste of time, Zaslav, Zizek, whatever his name is, you know him? Okay. I don't know what he's talking about, but that's okay. Jordan Peterson, Chomsky. Go down the list, especially philosophers. Worthless. Complete mental masturbation, circular discussions of nothing. Do you hear what I'm saying? Nothing. Circular discussions of nothing. I heard something which is very interesting. Did you ever hear this? There have been some wonderful, wonderful stories. There was an article in Alt Markets by a fellow by the name of Brandon Smith. It's very interesting, and I refer it to you. And it's wonderful theory about how there has been a move. Why the left? Now listen to me. Why the left has been involved historically with academia. Why academia has been involved historically in absorbing and in adhering to and adopting leftist globalist ideas. Do you remember this? There's a wonderful piece to a very interesting. What is with where does this work? How what am I trying to say? How does where did these people come from in terms of, and this is important, where did these people come specifically in terms of this perverse, weird, I don't know what the word is, with this weird, strange connection involving children, sexual deviancy, whatever you want to call it. Why has that been the left? And why has historically people on the right been less prone to sexual experimentation and the like? Michel Foucault, the French philosopher in the 60s, and others signed this agreement. And the word was, again, it was about pedophilia. But they basically started this idea that children somehow should be able to, I guess, involve themselves in consensual sexual activity, not only with themselves but with adults. And he signed these papers, and in 1968, it seems like this was the watershed moment with this tumultuous, these revolutions in France, and it's incredible. Okay. I think he signed with Sartre and others this idea that sexuality, this is in 1968, should apply as well to children, and that young people should be able to make their decision, and that it's kind of like a version of almost we always talk about NAMBLA, the North American Man Boy Love Association. It's almost that the ages of consent. Okay, fine. Let me stop. So that's where. Okay, so I've given you a couple of things. It's philosophy movement, 1968. Foucault with others as well. It was a part of this philosophical movement. Predates that. Nothing's really new. Okay, now, so far I've been into this for 12 minutes. Okay, and I've told you some stories about Foucault and about the left, and I talked a little bit about how they seem to have a different form of behavior than we do, or what they consider to be irrational, or whatever it is. Now that I've told you this, it's a complete and total waste of time. What difference does it make? Do you have any interest into where this came from? Maybe you do. I don't particularly care. Do you have this idea of where did this come from? This notion. Here's another one. We are seeing all over. There's a wonderful book called, I think his name is Schellenberger. It's called San Francisco. And there are these movements where he said that San Francisco, as an example, is yet again the manifestation of this. It started in 1968, but this humanitarian kind of a philosophical change, this wave that had us re-examine everything, the way we deal with the way we deal with the young, the way we deal with the mentally ill, the way we are there was a time when we took mental illness, and we put them into structured, carceral settings for not only their own good, but something which we've forgotten, our own good. You see, we have the pity for a schizophrenic so long as the schizophrenic doesn't bother us. Many of us have had people in our families. There are people I'm sure watching right now who have been through substance abuse problems and perhaps maybe suffering from certain mental health issues and depression or whatever. Okay, fine. That being said, the moment that your issue affects us and bleeds over into society, the moment that happens, the moment that happens, we don't care. It's where we are now. It's the way I am. I have nothing but compassion for you until you start to bother people. You may have the most incredibly wild and fecund, fertile, wild imagination regarding sexual desires. You may absolutely lust inanimate objects, the wind, lint. Have at it. You may talk about it, write about it, draw it. I would even say take pictures of it if you really want to. But the moment that ideation traverses the line and becomes participatory, involving a group of people who cannot, under law, consent, that's when we stop it. That's what I don't care what you think. I don't care. You may say, well, you've got a problem with pedophiles. No, I have a problem with anybody who bothers children. If you hit a child, if you beat a child, if you hurt a child, if you harm a child, there may not be a name for why you do it. It may not be out of sex. You just maybe you just are a violent person. I don't care what you call it. I don't care if it has a name. It doesn't make any difference to me. It doesn't make any difference to me whatsoever. I don't care. I don't care why you did it. Does it matter to me? That's a different story. And by the way, we'll throw in the elderly or anybody else who really can't consent. So anyway, so that's where we are. Okay, so in 1968, this started. But in addition to that, you're going to love this. Through this philosophical, it is complete. Let me just tell you something. There is a word that's scatological in reference, which is I think it's the most variable word that we have. It's the S word. And yet it's, and I tend to think along the African lines. The Africans believe that dung and manure are signs of growth and fertilizer. There was something we had years ago called the dung Madonna. Madonna. It was the Madonna who was covered with or was festooned with dung, and it was African art. And they said, no, we're not being irreligious or sacrilegious. Rudy, who was mayor at the time, had nothing to do with that idea. It was politically advantageous for him to be rather boorish artistically, and he wanted it out of the Brooklyn Academy of Art or whatever the hell it was. But it was something which is very, very important. And we use that word S as a derisive, as something that's insignificant, that's meaningless, that's whatever it is. And it's quite the opposite, because it is life. It is, again, it is fecundity. It is other things as well. Okay, fine. Now, that being said, what you have right now when you talk to philosophers are people who spew absolute garbage. But it's interesting. It's worthwhile. It makes us think. It's interesting to know the history, the philosophy of music, the philosophy of this, the philosophy of that. It's wonderful. Isn't that wonderful? Yes, it is. It's wonderful. It is. The philosophy, yes, so great. Isn't it wonderful? It really is. Truly wonderful. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. It is a complete and total waste of time. Philosophy, it's great, it's intellectually appealing, and it means nothing. And during the time, you're going to love this. Let me explain this to you. These people, I don't know if it was Foucault, but others in particular, you're going to love this, actually said and actually believed that schizophrenia was something that was somehow akin to not a mental illness per se, but people living or existing on a wavelength that we were not privy to. People who were not themselves ill, but merely spoke to, were living in a world of complete and utter nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Sometimes we've joked about it. So let me see. So now, 19 minutes, almost 20 minutes into this, I've given you this idea of where we are right now. There are these people who believe these things. Okay. Those people actually believed in this, and they're kind of sort of there, and maybe the leftists, they may be at institutions and educational institutions, and maybe they're there for whatever reason. I understand it, and I dig it, and that's great. And maybe there's a carryover today. Maybe that's it. Okay, fine. I understand that. It's insanity. It's insanity. That's insanity. The idea that a schizophrenic is not laboring under a biomedical, biochemical, neurological imbalance where he's hearing voices and cutting his wrists and screaming and yelling. The idea that that exists is so demented, so demented. I don't even know how to put this into words. This is where we are right now. Now, put them over there. We have other people today who are running this show who do not have a philosophical basis. They don't know Foucault from a hole in the ground. They don't care about any of this stuff. These are people who, for reasons we may or may not be able to understand, but people who want to encourage and facilitate and accelerate the complete and total destruction of our civilization. And they want to do it in a variety of ways. And they're doing it right now by basically opening up the mental institutions or not adding to the mental institutions. And I go back to where I started from. Nobody is telling you what to do. What is America talking about? Whether Trump should appear in the Fox debate? Whether Rupert Murdoch asked Youngkin to step in because he didn't care for DeSantis? What does this have to do with anything? We're on fire. There was a story today, and you're going to love this, and you know where it's going. From the Daily Mail. There was a woman whose sole house, she has a red roof. Interesting. She has a red roof. Did you see this? I know what you're going to think with this one. She has a red roof, and it somehow made, it was left untouched. Just one home in a block of housing in West Maui has inexplicably survived and left nearly untouched, as nearly every property around the area is burned to the ground following last week's devastating fires. New photos show the two-story house with white walls and red roof miraculously unharmed amidst the apocalyptic devastation surrounding it. The oceanfront home's garden house appears to have been kept a semblance of greenery in contrast to the ashes. There it is, all around her, with a red roof. You know what people are going to say, right? You know what people are going to say. They're going to say the red roof was a signal to whoever was involving the directed energy weapon delivery systems. That was her ability to, that was the, you know, this is coming. I'm telling you right now, I'm anticipating this. I'm anticipating this is what they're going to say because it fills in, and I had to say this, it fills in this narrative. Okay. Now, that's fodder for you. There's talk this week, and I don't know where it is. Others have said, I think Alex Jones have suggested, other people are intimating that somehow they've gotten the word that masks or wearing masks are coming back either to airports, airlines, and people will say, and I've heard this, well, I'm not going to wear a mask. That's just what they want to hear. I'm not going to do that. Good. So you're going to go on the airline? Yeah. And you're not going to wear a mask? Yeah, good. Well, you'll be arrested. And that's exactly what they want. Thank you. Put that in writing. Have a big sign that says, I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to do this. Okay, good. because they miss that. They miss it so much. The Karens miss it. The people who made the adhesives to go on the floor 6 feet apart, they miss it. Everybody, you have no idea. Those stragglers you see walking around with masks, they're waiting. They are waiting. Anybody talking about that? Not really. You're not going to hear that on Fox or any others. Why? Because they are connected to the power that be, CDC and others, and you're not going to hear anything about that. You just don't hear anything about it. You never hear anything about the war. You never hear anything about, you'll never hear Victoria Nuland's name. I'm going to say this again to you. If you haven't unplugged from Fox News and Newsmax and others, you're wasting your time. Then there's a story, which again, that was so interesting last week, where the AMA is actually pushing for, and I've talked about this in my private channel, which is very, 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 very important. Can't say it enough to you. Can't say it enough. But it's where I get to speak openly. And the AMA has actually suggested and has advocated and pushed for and touted the benefit, the actual benefit of there being, this is important, of there being government tax subsidy for people, for men, biological men. You're looking at one, me or Uncle Dave, deciding, this is important, deciding that we one day wake up and say, we want a uterine transplant. A uterine transplant. You understand that? It costs maybe up to $300,000, God knows more, up to $300,000. Do you understand what I'm saying? Up to $300,000. That's my link. I go into great detail. Do you know what that is? Do you have any idea what this means? Now, you can't do it on a TV show where you have somebody who's made up and has maybe a minute and a half to talk about something. But this group of people, they are still here. Where does that come from? It's kind of sort of maybe from the philosophy of the 60s, but it's hard to say because they didn't specifically deal with that subject. Then I also talked about, and I also want to discuss, there was a woman who was, and this is so important, she was a part of she's a World Economic Foundation member of she's an advisor, and she actually said in a piece of whatever it was, there was a evidence of population collapse. And she said, this is good news for the earth and for the planet, because with fewer people, there are more researches, less carbon footprints, and the like. This is what I heard. This is not a joke. I'm not just making this up. And nobody said anything about this. They thought, okay. And when you go to most people and you see a World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, you don't know. This is an ancillary, supra-governmental, kind of an offshore, off-board government entity, quasi-government entity, that is running the show that most Americans have no clue about. And no matter what we try to do to get them to understand it, no matter what we try to do to make them grasp it, to make them understand it, they really don't. They don't. And again, I'm asking, where is anybody talking about this? No one. Have you ever heard Jim Jordan or anybody from the House ever say, who are these people from these other organizations? And do we have any laws or any kind of protections against a government, a rogue government like the Bidens, signing off where we cede authority to these people, where we let them, for example, control our Second Amendment and the like? Do we have anything like that? No, that's not being talked about. So what I'm trying to tell you is that through philosophy, and you could just go down all the podcasts and the videos, and they're very interesting. It would be similar to me sitting outside of our family home and just doing a podcast describing its collapse versus trying to put out the fire, trying to see if anybody's alive, seeing if I could do anything, making sure that a call to action. not merely talking about it. Today, we will be saying, I got a lot of positive links on that. A lot of good hits, a lot of likes. I got some good metrics, got some new subs. This is fantastic. That's all I did. I saw it collapse. I saw it collapse. And I never lifted a finger. I never even suggested it. I never even called for help. I never picked up the phone and called anybody because I was so transfixed by watching the fire. And my podcast channel enjoyed it so much. That's all I did. Do you understand that? Do you understand what happens with this? This is where we are right now, my friends. Look at what the people in Portland. Remember Portland, beautiful Portland. You ever heard that? Isn't Portland? Wasn't it beautiful? Portland, Oregon, a complete and total disaster. San Francisco, beautiful. You could talk about, the Embarcadero, Fisherman's Wharf, and even the Bay Area, Marin, and all. Nobody wants to go there anymore. Los Angeles, forget it. Absolutely just forget it. And not just in terms of people strewn about the streets, but a sense of when you have I think the mayor or the head of San Francisco saying to people, move, telling government agencies, move away because of the fact that it's unsafe. Paul Rodriguez says, I read the book you suggested, The Center Cannot Hold by Eleanor Sachs. I learned how debilitating schizophrenia is. Oh, yes, thank you. It is so interesting. And she is one of the lucky ones. This is a woman who's Yale Law School she went to. She's a professor, I think. She's a clinical professor at, I forget where, UCL, one of the California. And she's a schizophrenic. Brilliant. And she talks about it, and I'm glad you saw it because it's something which is so incredibly interesting. And it's, by the way, she has some great interviews as well. If you don't want to necessarily read the book, sometimes you can kind of see in her, you can hear a little bit of that kind of a flat affect, but it's incredible. So here's what's going to happen. You ready for this? Nothing that I'm talking about will motivate Americans to do anything. Nothing. You will be shocked at the number of people who are not registered to vote and who do not plan to register to vote. I would venture right now, I would bet reasonable money that no one watching today, no one right now or whatever, has ever called an elected official, emailed an elected official, contact an elected official, a mayor, a governor, whatever, ever. We don't do that. And one of the reasons why is social media have absorbed a lot of our attention. America will do nothing about this. America just loves to describe things. We love to describe how our family home is burning, like describe the way the fire, the way the flames are lapping up and circling about. We love that. We love to describe things. We also love to somehow push our way to the front of the crowd and yell as loud as possible so that somebody will notice us. It's what happens with people on planes and that sort of stuff. This is something which is very, very important, very, very critical. So what I want you to understand is simply this. We can talk about, and I can give you some really interesting, I think, stuff about, well, this happened then. And the reason for that is this. And the reason why perhaps it was during the Reagan administration when we tended to deinstitutionalize. Oh, that's interesting. And then with the advent of psychotropic drugs, most people actually don't like those because that will minimize the evidence of the mental illness, which people actually like. And then you got to ask somebody, where are these people coming from who are absolutely without the ability? We always knew there were drugs. As you know, this month, in 5 days, that's right, turned 65. And in my 65 years, I've never seen needles. Never seen movies, but never in front of me. The past 2 weeks, I've seen more than most people see in a lifetime. So where'd they come from? They were there before. There were people using needles before. They were. I wouldn't be surprised if they were brought in and placed. There were people who were doing that. I understand that. You understand what's going on? What's happening here? So let me leave you with that, my friend. Let me ask you to thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being a part of us. Thank you so much. Please make sure you follow me on Twitter or X for that matter. Did you see where Twitter's getting rid of the ban function? They're saying, oh, this is very, very dangerous regarding safety issues. People should be able to ban people who stalk. It's a very good point. Please subscribe to our channel. Please like this video and subscribe. We always ask that. Please always hit that YouTube notification bell to be notified of live streams and the like. Go to lionelmedia.com to subscribe to my uncensored, culturally inappropriate private channel, which is important. Don't forget to follow Lynn's Warriors right here on X or Twitter at Lynn's_Warriors and YouTube at Lynn's Warriors. And don't forget our great friends who always make this possible. They're still standing. The great Mike Lindell from mypillow.com. Receive a free gift. Use promo code Lionel or call 800-645-4965 and watch how fast Mike answers the phone. Thank you, my friends. Until this eve, I want to thank you again for being a part of this, for being a part of our family, for being a part of our discussion. And until we meet again tonight at 7 p.m., I always remind you and end with this particular valedictory, this sayonara, this adios. The monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue ya.